We've lived in this house for 6 years and I have never been able to figure out what to do with my living room. And today I'm back in my living room. This year I've decided to go through my house room by room, do what I can with a low buy mentality. I don't want to buy a lot of things for my house this year. I'm just taking what I have and trying to make the most of it. My inspiration is Laurel Bern, and she has an interior design blog, and she's got this 12-step decorating program. I will link the blog post at the bottom. And in this video, I'm going to go through the first 6 steps for this room. Now, she's talking about a whole house plan, but I am just using her guidelines to go room by room through my house. And I'm starting in the front of the house in the living room. So I want to go back and watch my last video about all the problems in this room. I will link it down below. And today, what I'm mainly going to talk about in here is space planning and layout. And I'm really excited about what I was able to accomplish in here by just following her suggestions for actually measuring things instead of just my usual drag furniture around and see what looks right. Took this from her post, Best Decorating Plan for Beautiful Rooms. First thing you have to do is assess your home. So I'm gonna dial it down and I'm only assessing my living room. You have to look at your givens, which are things that you cannot change. It has a wood floor. Other givens, there are 2 doors in this room. There's one behind me that leads into the dining room, and there's one over this way that leads into the front hallway. There's wainscoting underneath all the windows, just the windows, and then there's chair rail that goes around the entire room, and instead of wainscoting wood paneling, there's wallpaper that the previous owners installed. There's 2 different kinds. There's a kind below the chair rail and there's a kind above. You can see right behind me, below and above. That's a given for now because we are not going to be taking the wallpaper down this year, so that's just a given. The colors and everything. There's a fireplace in here. That's a given. Unfortunately, the fireplace insert, which is big and black and ugly metal monstrosity, is also at this moment a given. At some point, I'd love to take it out and show more of the beautiful subway tile, but that's a project for another day. So that's a given. There's 4 windows in here. The wallpaper, and the trim color is a given because just like the wallpaper, we're not going to be repainting in here anytime soon. And it was actually painted relatively recently. And I pretty much am happy with the color. So it's staying, even though it's got some chips, which is unfortunate because I don't know what color it is to be able to touch it up. I suppose I might be able to try and find out somehow. Besides the things that you really can't move out of the house, like moldings and floors, also the furniture in here is a given. I could subtract pieces, but I don't have anything to add. Well, that's not really true. I do have some things to add, but mostly the furniture in here is a given. We're not going to be able to go shopping for all new furniture for this room, so it's make do with what we've got. And what we've got is a hodgepodge. It's things that we've inherited, been given, or bought over the years, but none of it was bought with any kind of plan or anything. It all just kind of ended up in this room together, but that's how it's gonna have to be. The piano is a given. Again, it's not the handsomest piano, but it's a very functional piano, and all of my children are studying piano, so it's a very important part of this room. The rug is a given. The pictures are a given. I wrote all that down on this graph paper here. Then I went on to the second part, which is find your decorating style. Now, I do happen to know my decorating style pretty much. I love English country style, I love French country style, and I love Swedish country style, which can be either sort of a rougher provincial farmhouse look or arts and crafts look. I also love the Gustavian style, which is a more refined, courtly, gray and gold look. I love all of those looks. I would say European country style sort of encompasses all of that. If you don't know your own personal decorating style, I think a great way to start is to just make a bunch of boards on Pinterest. If you like Pinterest, label them for the different rooms of your house, living room, dining room, bathroom, and just start pinning images that you like. And then after you've done that for a good solid afternoon, or over the course of a week, depending on your schedule, you should have a pretty good idea. If you take a step back and look, you should have a pretty good idea of what you're drawn to. You could also do that with Instagram. If you just save images that you like on Instagram, the same technique applies. Or if you have a bunch of old print magazines, you could cut out things you like out of print magazines and make collages out of them. And again, step back and just start noticing what it is that appeals to you. I know that the English country house sort of eclectic look of collected over time is the look that I want to go for in this room, because it just makes sense with the types of pieces that I have and also the style of the room. And the inspiration for this room for sure are Rita Konig and Robert Kime, who are both English designers and very much like the English country house type of designer. I also love Carol Glasser. She is amazing, and she's more of a Swedish country French look. I'll link to those three at the bottom if you also love those kind of styles. I have a video about French country style, English country style, and Swedish country style, as well as playlists about each. So if those types of styles interest you, I will put all of that stuff at the bottom of this video so you can look into it. And then number 3 is to think about your living needs. Now, I'm only thinking about the living room right now. This is the room where we like to entertain. We have our dining room behind us, and then we just like to eat like appetizers in here before dinner, and then go into the dining room for dinner, and then come back here to sit around and relax and we'll also often have dessert in here. We'll often like roast marshmallows or pop popcorn. Step 4 is budget. And my budget is zero, literally $0. I don't want to spend any money right now on anything. So this is a strictly use what you've got and make the most of it. So $0, easy. Number 5 is color. And again, the colors in here, they almost fall under given because I'm not changing any of the paint. So the colors are the colors of the rug, which are red. There's cool reds as well as warm reds in here. Also some shades of pink. There's the brown of the the brown of the floor, and some of the furniture is brown furniture. There's sage green. Step 6, which is space planning. A big heavy metal tape measure, and I measured the perimeter of my room, and then I drew that out on graph paper. And I drew the perimeter of the room on graph paper with the idea that 1 graph paper square equals 1 foot. It actually took me a couple tries to get it accurate. It was a little harder than it looks, but it was really fun, and it was worth it. I'm not the best at spatial relationships at all. It's not a strong suit of mine, but even I was able to do this and enjoy it. I had this, I think this is an architect scale, this cool furnishings template, which is also at a scale of 1/4 inch equals 1 foot, which is the same as the graph paper. So then you can use this to it has like a standard size piano and a sofa and chairs. It's fun. I couldn't use it for every piece of furniture because some of the pieces in here are non-standard. So I had to measure them and kind of just draw it in on the graph paper. But I was able to use it for most of them, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed using these tools. I felt like a professional designer. It was really fun. I drew in the furniture the way that we had it arranged. I took a look at Laurel's rules of thumb for living rooms, and I tried some different space configurations on paper. And I used her living room rules of thumb, where she kind of talks about how much space should be between for like walkways through, and how much space should be between your coffee table and your couch and that kind of thing. And I will link that post down below. Started playing around with arrangements of furniture in here, following her rules of thumb. In here is my fireplace and the doors. So you move the furniture around so that the fireplace is the focal point, and then it's hard to talk across how big the space is because the room is quite deep. And so what always happens is people end up moving chairs, they'll like drag chairs up to the coffee table to create a impromptu grouping of chairs, much to my chagrin, because I'll have thought I had a nice circle for people to talk, and it seems like it always feels too big for people. Realized, and I actually read this in a different book that I also love, Frida Ramstedt, who I guess is a Swedish blogger, and this was translated from Swedish. It's called The Interior Design Handbook, The Living Room Rules of Thumb. And she said there should kind of be a talking circle, anything over 10 feet is going to feel too far for people. It's going to be uncomfortable. And anything less than 8.25, people might feel too close together, and anything bigger than 10 feet, they're going to feel too far apart. It's 22 feet deep. It's 19 inches long, which is pretty typical according to what Laurel said about rooms, but 22 feet deep is a lot deeper than most rooms. That is a challenge because if you want to have your seating grouping, you're going to have depth beyond that like extra space, which is great, except I've never lived in a place where I had that problem, I guess. It had that feature of like a depth where you could create more than kind of like layers of seating groups instead of just one. What I did was I dragged the couch closer to what we already had in here. And we felt really good. We felt like, oh, this is really nice. But then it meant the couch was kind of like blocking half the fireplace. But it did feel much better to sit in that circle. And then when I went back the next day and measured, after I read that in her book, so I did this without even reading about that rule of thumb of a 10-foot talking circle. It was exactly like a 10-foot circle radially. And I thought that was amazing that we had like just intuited that felt better. And then it got confirmed by a book. But even though it felt better, it really bothered me that the fireplace was blocked. And I know from reading Laurel's stuff that you really do have to have a focal point in your room. And this room's natural focal point is the fireplace, and there's no getting around that. Then I went back to the drawing board, literally, and I drew another room plan and dragged the furniture around some more. I drew another plan based on her ideas. She said her favorite seating arrangement, or one of them, is a couch and then 2 chairs. And so that really appealed to me too. So I decided to try that, and I dragged in another wing chair that I had that had been out in the hallway. And I kept nudging the couch back until I could see the fireplace, and it was completely free. Like if I was standing in the hallway door, I could see the entire fireplace because the couch wasn't blocking it on this side. And then I put the 2 wing chairs on the other side, again, so they weren't blocking the fireplace. And then I measured, and lo and behold, it was 8.25 feet. The perfect talking circle, right before you start getting in too close. So I was really excited about that, and I even wondered if the architect of this room had sort of known that. And I kind of bet he did, or she did, all along. And everything had been kind of squished up closer to the fireplace, and I looked up and I noticed there is a chandelier in here, which I forgot to mention. That's a given too. It's original to the house. And there's a chandelier up here. So then I nudged everything, the couch and the coffee table and the 2 chairs, I nudged everything closer to the door so that the chandelier is centered over the coffee table. It falls into the center of the coffee table as best as I can tell. The couch and the coffee table, and then they're centered with the space in between the 2 front windows as well. And so it feels really good, and it feels really symmetrical. Yes, I've got all this depth now. I've got my talking circle, but I've got all this depth behind that I don't want to just be empty space, and I have furniture to fill it. So, and we do like to entertain and have parties, and what's cooler than having like separate little places where you can go and talk away from the main group if you're at a party. I mean, not a dinner party where you're all trying to be together, but like a bigger party. That's really fun, I think. And actually, when I was in the middle of this project, my brother-in-law came over, and we were just sitting in the room talking, and I said, what was it like, in like a Jane Austen novel or something, like their drawing rooms? And we were kind of reminiscing about watching Pride and Prejudice, and he said, yeah, I think there'd be like, they would be like apart, like 2 people would be talking over here, and Mr. Darcy would be over there writing a letter, and Miss Bennett's over there reading a book, and then like the sisters are over there together chatting and gossiping, and they're periodically trying to pull people in to their main circle of talk who are off by themselves doing their own thing, like Darcy and Elizabeth. But it seemed like it was perfectly fine that they were, and that the room was set up for that, like to go and write a letter or go and read a book, and then there's like a main circle of talking. And then I think some of the older folks were even in another corner playing cards. And my house dates from the 1870s, so I think some of that mentality of how you were going to use your front room was probably very much in play when they built this room. I kept my little seating arrangement of two other wingback chairs I have against the wall, and I moved our game table. We do have a game table. It's like a collapsible one that folds in. I unfolded it and just to keep the game part out, and we might do that kind of permanently, because as soon as I did that, my kids started playing games on it immediately, and we haven't really used it as a game table because it's always folded up. So I think kind of sometimes having things folded up means you don't use them, but we could always fold it up if we needed to. But for right now, it's unfolded. So we have like a game corner over there. And then we have this settee that's pushed up against the wall where it's always been. So I thought, people could talk there, and they could turn and talk to the people over at the game table. There's also enough freedom with the way the chairs are that they could talk to people in the main talking circle as well. Another seating arrangement over behind me where there's two chairs and a table as well. The main thing that was really important that she recommended there in your main pathways would be at least 30 inches and preferably 36 for people to walk so they don't feel crowded. So I measured and remeasured to make sure that behind these two wingback chairs there was 36 inches of space, and between the couch and that door there's way more than enough space to walk. And then between the fireplace and the couch there's enough space, and then between the door and the couch on that side there's enough space so you don't ever feel like you're squeezing or have to turn. And so it has this really comfortable feel to it. Never would have come up with that without knowing about that rule of the 36 inches. So I'm really happy about that. I really feel like I problem solved, and all it took was some graph paper and a template and a measuring tape and a ruler. Link all the information down below if you'd like to give this a try in your own home. And please let me know in the comments, what do you think of my living room or layout? Let me know what you think of it, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. This is Kathleen from oldworldfarmhouse.com.